and welcome to Target Score Vancouver. Andrew Savory here with our guest host, our leader, Joey Slattery. So great to have you, Joey. How's it going, man?
Oh, man, I'm stoked to be here. This is our first time. We were just talking about it off air. Our first time working together. We've known each other for a bunch of years. We are two dudes that love this league. And finally, the powers come together, Andrew, where, and hey, we all miss Chris Wiggins. He had more important things to do. And I know there was no one better out there. So, let's just get Joey. We know he'll do it. But hey, the honor's all mine. And Chris will be back next week. But I'm happy to keep his mic warm.
Shout out to Chris back in the homeland. We're going to see him next week. But Joey, another Ontario boy who's in the heartland, of course, of Canada, coming at us from Winnipeg. But Joey, you know what? We all moved around and super excited to have your perspective from the Peg.
Yeah, I'm super excited too, and this has been the fun part of this whole the expansion of Target Score. I think I know I helped Chris in the first show I guess hosted before you joined on board. But yeah, this started as a Winnipeg podcast. It's just kind of a labor of love, and through this cool league we've had a chance to meet so many cool people, and that's been the best part I think about the network. Our boys in Brampton, D-Ball Sarah and Matt Bonomi, Taylor Allen, my co-host in Winnipeg, and you and Chris. I mean, we have our group chats. We're just chatting CEBL all the time, and it's been a lot of fun. And your crossover episode last week was awesome. I got to point that out. I know it's now done, the crossover game between Brampton and Vancouver, but if you haven't checked out the crossover edition, it's on our YouTube page at Target Score Podcast, where you can find all the episodes, actually, Winnipeg, Vancouver, and Brampton. But that one is the special crossover episode between Brampton and Vancouver. So it was Chris and Andrew against D and Matt going head to head. Great target score or target time element to it as well. I had a blast watching. I was jealous. Taylor and I actually had a conversation on air on our podcast, just how jealous we were. So we can't wait for that next matchup when Vancouver's in town, or Vancouver and Winnipeg meet, so we could have our crossover episode.
Yeah, hopefully one day there's a 6-person crossover. That'd be pretty sweet. But you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that, because if people haven't watched on the Target Score Pod's YouTube channel, people should be staying tuned to social this week, especially because you got some pretty sweet guest shows coming up. Matt Bonomi and D-Ball Sarah got Cameron Tyson. The CEBL is one of their top 3-point shooters in the league, not just from a volume, but a percentage standpoint. So Cameron Tyson with Matt and D. And then Joey, you had Trevon Scott as a special guest with Taylor Allen joining you earlier tonight, I guess. So super excited to tune in on that. And maybe some snippets on social if people are following along at Target Score Pod.
Yeah, and make sure that you're subscribed to all of it too, wherever you get your podcast. You don't want to miss an episode, man. We're rolling now. And the interview with Trevon Scott, if you get a chance to check out the Winnipeg episode, this dude started. He played for the Sea Bears last year, went to the G League, played for Long Island. He'd played in the NBA before, a couple games with Cleveland, but this time he got his real shot on a 10-day contract. He was starting for the Brooklyn Nets just Huge. 2 months ago. Now he's back in the CEBL. He had a couple games with Calgary. Now he's back in Winnipeg. Just a great story. You don't need to be this. Most of the interview has nothing to do with the Sea Bears and everything to do with his journey. So you don't have to be a Sea Bears fan to enjoy that one. So I highly recommend, if you're a basketball fan, you hear a little bit about these journeys and what it means to these guys to finally crack their dream. It was a good episode.
And if Bandits fans are wondering when Trevon Scott may be coming to Langley Event Center, a couple games between the Sea Bears Bandits in June, 1st and the 18th at Canada Life. But Mr. Scott and company coming to Langley Event Center, 6 p.m. tip on Saturday, June 27th. But over here in Banditland, Joey, it's been fun to follow along. I mean, they're in the middle of a road trip right now, going up against Ottawa tomorrow. But a 2-0 start to this road trip. A lot of people talking to staff internally were like, hey, you know what? We know we're waiting on some additions to come in, but if we come back from this road trip on a tough Eastern swing, Brampton was 5-0 at the time. Niagara was on a 2-game winning streak. Ottawa's looking like they got some good talent this year. Alex Fudge, Matthew Cleveland, others, Javonte Smart in the mix. So we'll see how that pans out tomorrow night. But a 2-0 start, they're pretty happy, but really got a key in on Miller Kopp. We kind of called his hot streak. So shout out to Chris and I. We were grateful for that. But Miller Kopp, after the first 2 games.
You know this. I'll put myself out here, because before he went off, and you called it in the group chat, but I said, is Miller Kopp going to be the next AJ Hess? And for those who have not followed the league, AJ Hess was one of the first marksmen that came in for Winnipeg in their first year, and there were these high expectations, and the guy couldn't hit, and he was a good shooter, but he could not hit the side of a barn. that year, and it kind of carried over into his next year. I thought it might happen, but credit to you, Andrew, because you were the first one to say he's going to go on a heater starting next game, and he has been that. He's come as advertised. I mean, that dude just looks like an athlete, right? Like he just looks like a shooter and a pure hooper, and he's been a pleasure to watch, man. This Vancouver team, I don't know what it is about Vancouver, but ever since Vancouver hosted championship weekend, they've been a whole new team. Like whether it's, Kyle Julius, Mitch Creek, or, Dwayne Notice, the vet, like there's a culture that's been established there that is, a perennial contending team. And right again this year, right? And I'm really interested to see how it goes from here because it's very similar to last year in terms of how they're starting out. And there was a lot of disappointment, right? You go through this whole season just to have the disappointment in that semifinal against Calgary, but they don't seem disturbed by that at all. If anything, they looks like they're motivated, but they've been a heck of a team to watch. And I just want to touch note on those Ontario games. Those are two really tough games, Andrew. I can't understate that enough. You went to Niagara's home opener, fresh off their second championship. It was banner night, back-to-back years. They get their rings, they get their banner. You have the extended, pregame ceremony. And it's that reminder again that that could have been us, right? If it weren't for some calls that went against us in that fourth quarter and in Target time, and the frustration that came with that. Take care of business there. Great game. But the one that really got me was the Brampton one, because that Brampton game was Brampton is the best team in the East right now. Yeah, I know Scarborough's up there too, but Brampton's really been on a tear, and it was a close game against the team that was undefeated at the time. You go into their house on a back-to-back. That's the other. I think it was the absolute next day. Yeah, it was a Saturday night after you just played Friday in Niagara, and you follow it up with a 93-87 win. I mean, that to me was that's a character-building 2-game win streak. And to be totally fair, by the time this comes out, the Ottawa game will have already been played, so we won't touch too much on that one. Ottawa's a really good team. If they lose this one, I still think they won the road trip. If you go 3-0, that's awesome. But to get the first two, I think is much bigger than anything. Now there's no more undefeated teams, thanks to Saskatoon taking care of Scarborough. Another weird one, I think, for a lot of people. But I think that the East particularly, there's a lot of parity. I felt like the last couple of years, Andrew, I don't know if you feel the same, but I felt like the West was where it was. Like the West was a lot stronger the last couple of seasons. It does seem like the paradigm has shifted a little bit to the East. And maybe it's because Sean East is in the East now, right? And if Jameer Nelson Jr. ever shows up, I think that's still the plan that he's coming to Brampton. That's going to be a really scary team. But I personally counted out Montreal. I wouldn't say counted out. I just, we've got friends and sources out there that were kind of I don't know how they're going to be this year. And, not looking maybe as strong as years past. But, man, they look great. So has Ottawa. I don't know if there's going to be a clear-cut favorite in the East, when it comes to playoff time. I think whatever those matchups are going to be, home court might actually be an advantage because that might be the only difference between some of these teams because they're playing really tight.
Like you said, I think there's going to be a logjam in the middle. I think when you look at some of the top-end talent, like in Ottawa and Montreal, yeah, that's a 3-3 team. That's a 2-4 team. And even Niagara below 500 for potentially the first time in years. That's a team that's the winningest team in CBL history. When you look at the River Lions, there's a new coaching program, and obviously Kimball McKenzie is probably bringing a little bit of the Vic Razzo flavor, obviously playing under his tutelage, but that team's going to figure it out. Their organization, top to bottom, run the right way. They recruit well. I'm not worried about Niagara. I think Ottawa and Montreal, that's not a team that you want in a first round if you're the top team of the East, depending on where things net out. In a winner take all, I think all those teams are capable of beating each other, if I put it that way.
100%.
Javonte Freeman-Liberty in a playoff game, he might pop off for 40. And if that was against the Brampton, for example, you could get sudden death punched and you're out all of a sudden against the lowest seed in your conference. But had they been in the West, might have had a different record. So it's a really good point that you make on that front. But I also would just want to give a little bit of a shout out to a local product who hopefully people are starting to get acquainted with, because you mentioned that big win over Brampton. That game was neck and neck pretty much right up until its finale. Obviously, Vancouver winning by 6, 93-87, but it went down to the fourth quarter. It was pretty much tied heading into the fourth, and Vancouver wins the fourth by 9 points. But Dominic Parolin on that road trip, 19 points on 5 of 8 shooting. He's 23 years old, first pro action. Hasn't missed a free throw all season. And against Brampton, 9 for 9. He's the first post off the bench, 10 rebounds, 4 of them offensive, 3 blocks, only 1 turnover. Just crazy what this kid's doing at his age. And people wouldn't be familiar with Dominic Parolin, but played BC high school hoops. Winnipeg's got a bunch of those guys too. We know them, the Chad Posthumuses, the Kyler Filowiches. This is our version here on BC. And I just hope people start looking into Dom's game because he's got a bright future.
Well, and that kind of speaks to the development that's happening in Vancouver as well, right? I mean, the depth there, it's just there's no real weak spots. When you've got a guy like Dwayne Notice who can come off the bench and, isn't popping off double-digit points every night and having to carry the load offensively, that is a really good situation to have. And, it's really important to have those guys. And I think that's, going to be a key for Vancouver moving forward. I love that they had the college university combine. That was a great innovation from Vancouver. It puts the spotlight on some of the local players. Shaden Smith, there's another dude that can ball. He hasn't really had a chance. He's the U Sports guy from Victoria, but he plays at a powerhouse Victoria Vikes program. I think that guy's ready for pro. I don't know how it's going to go when he starts getting minutes. If he gets those minutes, it's tough as a U Sports player, but there are some great basketball players in BC, whether they're from BC or they're going to play their basketball at Victoria or UBC particularly, or the 2 big programs out there. But it speaks to the development in Vancouver, the importance of playing from home, but also just here's a guy who has done so much in his career through college to the pros, willing to come off and have that impact. And this is going to happen as this guy keeps going and keeps getting those reps, and it's going to get more natural, more comfortable. I think you're just hitting the scratching the surface with him.
Couldn't agree more. And it's going to be so key because right now he's the first post off the bench, but we've talked about this in a number of episodes, and I've seen it in your episodes with Taylor as well as D and Matt. The CBL is kind of a tale of 3 seasons, if you will. You have your starting roster, your summer league roster, then your playoff sprint roster. And I'm really interested. We talked about the East, logjam in the middle, but where the West is going to net out, just even looking at the standings, obviously you have Vancouver up at 5-1, Winnipeg right behind at 3-3, but the Mamba all of a sudden 2-game winning streak, wins against Winnipeg and a huge one against the Shooting Stars, picking up their first loss, and Tavian Dunn-Martin finding his rhythm, new coach in the system. You and I were talking earlier today, this team could surprise some people. They got the talent that just needs to gel a little bit. And if it gets going, look out Edmonton, trailed closely by the Mamba. Things could be tough for the Surge, but I'm really interested to see where the West nets out.
Things can change so quickly in the CEBL. That's the other thing too. And even to the Edmonton standpoint, I'll say this, and I've said it on our podcast too, never count out a Jordan Baker team, right? That's a team that spark at the right time. It's kind of like Niagara. They're the 2 teams with 2 championships for a reason. There's a culture there. You don't want to count out those teams. But when the Mamba were in town, because the home opener for the Sea Bears was against the Mamba, and I remember thinking it was a decent game, and they were sloppy as a team would be early in the season. It wasn't that they were bad. You could just tell the chemistry wasn't quite there. They've got some powerful offensive weapons. They do have a pretty complete roster in terms of, they can play some bigs inside. Jalen Williams played for Winnipeg last year. He's a great player. He could step back, shoot the 3 and be that stretch 4, but he is powerful inside as well. It was just a matter of time. And I wasn't shocked about the Scarborough loss to Saskatoon. They had just beat Winnipeg at home for the first win of the season. They were fired up after that game. If you didn't catch that game, Tavian Dunn-Martin and Emmanuel Acott got into it after the game, throwing the ball back and forth at one another. It finally felt like a rivalry between Saskatchewan and now Saskatoon and Winnipeg. It was such a hollow rivalry for that Manitoba-Saskatchewan rivalry that's natural. Might have sparked that day, and they carried that into the Scarborough game. Again, Scarborough was 6-0 at the time. To go in there, probably feel themselves a little bit. And here's a team that every win they had come from behind in Target time, which is wild. But there was bound to be a game they were going to lose. And sometimes it's the one you least expect. the team that's, just trying to find that win or has been struggling, that tends to be the teams you lose to. But that's all credit to Saskatoon. I don't think that takes away from the Saskatoon win. But I wasn't totally shocked to see Scarborough lose their first game. And it's nice now all the teams have a loss, at least one, and there's only one team that still doesn't have a win in Calgary.
Yeah, Perry Huang, when I look at that Calgary team, I was just looking at Evan Gilliard's stats before this, and obviously have Sean Miller-Moore back in the fold, a lot of continuity there. But the CBL is not an easy place to coach. I just want to give a bit of a shout out because we have a ton of first-year coaches in this league. Obviously, Tyrell Vernon, not coaching last year, but back in the fold with the Scarborough Shooting Stars. Is a league that plays by different rules. It's FIBA rules. It's target score ending. I've always looked at this league, especially from the point guard position, and this fact is being proven wrong. I used to say to succeed as a guard in the CBL, you have to be big, athletic, get the ball at the floor quickly, and kind of play above people if you have to. And that was like the era when you were seeing like the Jalen Harrises, et cetera, kind of taking over. But now this year, you kind of have those small guards really showing out. We saw it with Tavian Dunmartin. We're seeing it with Jalen House as well. Jalen House averaging nearly 11 assists a game. And it's kind of a difference in playing style a little bit where that physicality is still there, but we're seeing some of those quick guards come in. And that's what gets me excited when I also look at Winnipeg. Obviously, Xavier Moon, one of those early signings, still waiting for him to come back from Russia. But it's still a young season. Obviously, 6 games in for Winnipeg. Lots of way to go with 24 games overall. But so much could happen. And I just like how the CBL, no 2 years are the same. And when I look at Calgary, this is a team that's basically been to the finals and the conference finals the year prior, expects to be competitive, but they have to right the ship really quickly.
Well, they've been in every Final Four since they moved to Calgary, if I'm not mistaken. And the weird thing is, Andrew, is that this is a team that's had no consistency with roster, like outside of Ruggsy Miller-Moore and Odell Adoon. They've never had the same coach twice. I mean, Tyrell Vernon was once a coach for Calgary. Now, he's out in Scarborough and, also a great coach out with St. FX in the AUS. But it's funny that the year that they bring some guys back and, on a successful team that went to the finals last year, you lost, of course, 2 big pieces and Jameer Nelson Jr. and Greg Brown, Greg Brown the second. But it's strange that the year that they kind of go against what they've been doing year after year is the year they have this rough of a start. Do I think they're going to stay this way? No. They have some room to make some changes in terms of, go sign another player. What players are going to be falling off the roster of other CEBL teams as other guys come in, like in Winnipeg, for instance? They already have 6 imports. So when Xavier Moon gets here, they're going to have to make a decision to let someone go. So there's a lot of things that could happen between now and, mid-season into that third part of the CEBL season, as you put. I love the way you painted that picture. But yeah, it's still early. The urgency picks up. It does make it a lot harder, but I think it was last year, Edmonton had like a 12-game, like something ridiculous, like a 12-game win streak or something. They looked out of it, and then suddenly they were into it, and they were the scariest team going into the playoffs. So anything can happen in this league, but it's not a great start for Calgary, and that's the weird part with them. Saskatoon's strung together a couple of wins now, and there's been a couple of tight losses for Winnipeg, so it's starting to clog up. But, this year it does seem like it's Vancouver at the top, and, really their division or conference to lose at this point right now.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how it really shapes up down the stretch. And that's where I think you look at continuity. And obviously some of these guys coming in here in Vancouver, a lot of people are waiting for a Shamar Gibbons, someone who's played for a few different CBL teams, but really enamored himself with the Bandits faithful here at Langley Event Center for his hustle. Another small guard when we talk about the less kind of larger guards coming in, burst of speed, but a playmaker first type of guy. Jalen House, he has that takeover ability. He's a volume-heavy point guard. Some nights he's going to take potentially 30% of a team's shots. But Shamar, pass-first type of guy, currently playing in Champaign, France. They're in playoffs. But then I look, who else is in that starting unit? But we've seen some pieces step in. David Mutabazi, Trinity Western grad, who's got some minutes. But then I look at someone like Mike Mulder, and I think this is really interesting. I think it's good context because fans have been asking a little bit. They're like, hey, this guy has 80 NBA games under his belt. Much like a Trevon Scott or Javonte Smart, they're either flirting with somewhere between the 20 and 50 games, maybe just sub of 100. And that's Mike Mulder. He was in the bubble. He's averaged north of 5 points a game over a full NBA season. And they're like, why is this guy shooting less than 40 from the field, less than 30 from 3? and averaging 8.5 a game. And I'll say one thing: this is his first pro ball in 2 years. Hasn't played in the G since late 2024. And with that in context as well, it's not his role. It's not his role to fill up the basket that much. If you're in the building at Langley Event Center, you're at the practices, the leadership that he's providing in between whistles, calming down some of the animated demonstrations that you might see from like a Tyrese or a Jalen might not be happy with a call. Mulder's a little bit of a gel. I do think there is room for uplift in his three-point shot. That was his bread maker in the NBA. That needs to get to 35% or above, hopefully closer to 40. But I look at this team, and I called him Miller Cop Heater before he went on one. And I think tomorrow night's going to be Michael Mulder's night. I think it's the end of a road trip. I think it's going to be a tough matchup. And Mulder has yet to get legitimately close to 20 points. I'm not going to say he's going to surpass 20, but I'm going to pick up 17 tomorrow night from Michael Mulder is going to be my pick. And then hopefully that sets the stage for the Kelowna game when they come home.
Okay, I'm going to say this to our viewers and listeners right now, because you're going to be listening to this after the game is played. So if he's right, this was live. He did not have the outcome afterwards. So he hit that on the head with his prediction. And if it doesn't happen, well, they have something to laugh at. But no, I agree with you. And the other point, too, is I think it reflects just how good this league is too, right? Like you don't just come in from the NBA and rule. And this has been the same thing for the CFL fans out there, that guys, they think they can come from the NFL and just run the CFL. It's not like that. It's a different game. It's a different style. And it's really, really good basketball. The margin of difference between a guy that plays in the NBA and is on, not playing in the NBA is so razor thin. I don't think it's a knock on Michael Mulder. Like you said, he hasn't played in a couple of years. It's a different role, but this is a league that he's going against young guys that are hungry, that are looking for that, that opportunity. And you hit the nail on the head. His value for Vancouver, as much as people expect it to be on the floor, and I have no intel on this, but this is what I speculate, is I think that is what the draw to Vancouver was. Let's get a guy who's played on a team with championship pedigree with some of the best in the world in the Golden State Warriors. Let's put him into our system, a championship, because I always say Vancouver has the championship pedigree without the championship, right? Like they've been knocking on the door for so long.
Don't make me cry now.
But you got, this is your Mitch Creek, just maybe not as skilled as Mitch Creek was on the floor and not as complete as Mitch Creek is as a basketball player. Mitch Creek played in the NBA. He's played in the NBL in Australia. He's a legend in Australia in the NBA. I think last year there was like a countdown of top 100 plays, and one of his dunks was the top. Like he's a big deal out there. And I think we kind of understand it here, but like it's really hard to understand unless you're living it out there. But Michael Mulder is filling that void, right? Like he is the guy that is able to give that NBA experience, share those stories of what it's like to travel in the NBA, what the locker rooms are like, what the treatment is like, what Steph Curry's like, and Klay Thompson, whatever, all these guys that he would have played with and against. And you bring those stories here as a form of motivation, right? Like, and then what you hope is that these guys go and have their own NBA runs, and then Vancouver becomes a destination, not because you're in one of the most beautiful cities and areas in Canada, but because it's also a place that has a proven pathway to the NBA. And when you get these NBA guys, and I think this is probably large in part for Winnipeg too. One of the bigger reasons why they wanted to bring Trayvon Scott back, beyond the fact that he's a good basketball player and has played with this team, is that mentorship that comes with it. Like I guarantee you, every young guy on that team, even some of the older guys, are probably like, "Yo, what was it like? Like, what was that experience like being in the NBA? What was it like to get the call? What was it like to, like, who did you room with?" Like, it's just all these little things that kind of makes it even more tangible now for those players that are, just on the cusp of getting to the NBA, or even if it's top tier Europe, whatever the case may be. But I think he plays a very valuable role, as much as though I'm not seeing it like you are. I'm not like right there every day seeing them. I do think there was a strong value beyond just what he can do on the floor for that team.
I think it's so true what you say, and I would encourage hopefully our Okanagan listeners who are going to tune in ahead of this weekend to take the context in this episode, and when they go through the roster pages for the Saskatoon Mamba and the Vancouver Bandits, and fans start getting jacked for that game that's going to be tipping off 6 p.m. this Saturday at Prospera Place, they understand that these players, like some of these guys, haven't had their first pro contract up until now. It's the Dominic Parolins. They're competing for potential European money. and they're going to be grinding as hard as they can. And that level of difference between them and an NBA player isn't as large as you think. Then you have journeymen, some journeymen who are trying to put food on the table, quite literally. They want tape from the summer so they can get a job in the fall and provide. And then you have guys who are navigating mid-career. Maybe they want to get back to the show. Maybe they're trying to get from second or third division up into the first division in the major international league. And that's what makes this league so exciting. And you're going to see that on all 10 teams across the league. And I think for any fans, whether you're coming from a Kamloops or a Penticton or you're driving up to Kelowna, it's going to be so fun because this is the first time that community's ever going to have had a chance to touch professional basketball. And
Salmon Arm, we're going to leave them out of there.
I know exactly. Peachlands, Lake Country. I know where I'll be after the game's done. Definitely going to be checking out Lakeside. Vineyard, capital of Canada. Oliver would definitely recommend. But yeah, you and me, Joey, we'll be sipping on a fine wine one day. But when it comes to that game, I just think it's going to be packed. It's summertime. It's Lakeside. It's beachside. Mamba are riding a 2-game streak, so that could be potentially a little bit deadly. But fans are going to be treated as something special. And it's kind of like those neutral site games that you see in Alberta a little bit. They've moved it around. You got Red Deer.
And they were seeing Red Deer like this week. Yeah, or last week, I guess.
And I think it's a really interesting litmus test. I was looking into some economic stats for Kelowna. I was like, how viable of a market is this? And I was actually reading that the last time the census was done, we're kind of in that period right now. It's about to be redone. In 2021, Kelowna was the fastest growing city in Canada. Central Okanagan was more than 200,000 people, and Kelowna itself is about 165,000 people. It's a big part of BC's population. It's got a few emerging sectors. And
tourism, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they throw around Halifax, they throw around Quebec City, but I think this is Kelowna's chance to show out and show that they're worth consideration for a future team, and I think they're going to do so.
Well, here's what I'll say, man. They're there for a reason, and it's not just because they want to play a game in Kelowna, right? These games tend to have more to them as terms of a measuring stick. So if you're a Kelowna basketball fan and you're listening to this, get your ticket if you haven't already. Make sure you're watching this league because all those analytics are being taken into consideration when they eventually look to expand. Speaking to the old regime before we went through all the changes in the CEBL, like that was a big part of the plan, right? Was they wanted to expand, but they wanted to make sure that it was even, that they had a team in the West and the team in the East. And the Kelowna was, and I remember when it came up, like I heard it kind of thrown around, like really, like Kelowna, like I would have assumed Victoria just because of the rich basketball culture. It's Vancouver Island, but no, Kelowna has been brought up like a lot in the last few years as a viable basketball market for a professional basketball team. And Quebec City, you know, they've been knocking on that door. Remember they had the All-Star game a few years ago. That was awesome. They've got this beautiful stadium. I remember talking to the people in the league that were there. I wasn't there, unfortunately. I wish I was. But they were talking about just how great this arena was. Halifax will happen when it happens. And, you know, there's been some changes where that might be more viable now. I do think you need a team out in the Maritimes, but you also can't count out relocation, right? You know, these are teams that are now owned by owners across the league. If there's a market that's not doing so well, or they feel like there's a better market out there, there might be a move. Like this happens in leagues across the board, you know, where, you know, a franchise moves and, you know, eventually I think that will be something that the CEBL will have. Maybe not, maybe it's like the CFL, right? Where everybody stays where they are. But if they don't, and they're open to those markets that aren't the major markets of Canada, you know, Kelowna's top of the, like, among the top of the list. I think, because I still consider Quebec City and Halifax, like, those are major markets. Like those are kind of the easy ones. But, you know, Kelowna is that city that carries itself like a major market, but it's not that big of a city. But, you know, there's a lot of, as you said, like the many industries are emerging. There's money in that area. There's from both corporate and just, you know, like employment, things like that. It would be very viable. I think if it went there, it would do really, really well. But this game is, you're right. Like you're going to be treated as something that is very unique, that has not happened, at least to my knowledge, in Kelowna, where you've Canadian professional basketball on your turf, and it's your team, right? Like this is the BC Lions of basketball for, you know, the Canadian Football League fans out there. But, you know, if you're in that area, even if you're not, if you're a Bandits fan, make that trip. I made a road trip to BC not last year or the year before, and I actually didn't get to Kelowna because we went the other way. Like we went down through Kamloops and like into Vancouver, but we didn't take the highway that goes to Kelowna. So I have to go back just so I can visit Kelowna. But that whole drive is gorgeous. So if you're in BC and you're within a half day's drive, man, what else are you doing? Go to Kelowna, have some wine, chill, go watch some basketball. Doesn't get better than that.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. It's like manifesting it to happen. Just to put the business case together from the logistics side of thing, you look at the league and there's a ton of Calgarians, ton of people from Edmonton who go to Kelowna for trips, much like Vancouverites do. And the league's always thinking about how to be as frugal as possible, as any business-minded league is going to do. Victoria does have some potential expense added to it, a little bit harder to get to, a little bit further. Kelowna's connected by land, whether you're taking bus or you're flying, whatever a team decides to do. But you also have a youth sports program there in the UBCO Heat, so you have some access to facilities for training, player housing, etc. You have a CCAA program in Okanagan College and some of the other cities. You have Thompson Rivers University, that's just a little bit further in Kamloops. And so you're talking about an environment where, Victoria's got a rich basketball history, but I said a couple episodes ago, but he's probably too busy with the NBA Finals now. Shout out Spurs. But if Kelly Olynyk is listening, or his dad, Ken Olynyk, who highly likely may be listening, who knows? Maybe Kelly O wants to put his name on something not far from his hometown. That may be tampering, so I apologize, but we'll see.
No, but and you're right. And he wouldn't be the first NBA or Canadian NBA player to have an interest in owning a team or having a stake in a team here in Canada. And that's the thing too, is, you look at the region that it's in, and Victoria is kind of like, and this is my perception, and I'm speaking solely from a basketball perspective, but they're like our best version of a college town, like where their university basketball team has its own facility. Like I love watching games in Victoria because they only have the basketball lines. Like it's just such a pure experience to go watch the Vikes in Victoria. And maybe that's where it should be, right? It's like, that'll be our premier college town with, a great program. What's the city in Alabama where Alabama is? The name's slipping me right now. Oh my gosh. Anyway, but it's like that, like those college towns in the States, like all the biggest universities are in the smallest towns that would never have pro teams, right? So maybe that is the key, is like kind of give Victoria that. But I always laugh because I thought, what if you had a team in Victoria and we still had the Newfoundland Growlers? And how terrible that road trip would be, having to go from coast to coast, quite literally. Imagine.
Yeah, UVic to MUN Memorial University. That'd be crazy. Is it Tuscaloosa? Is that
Tuscaloosa? I kept wanting to say Tallahassee. I'm like, I know it's not Tallahassee. That's Florida. Tuscaloosa. Yeah, that's like our but in basketball terms, or maybe it's our Chapel Hill. That's a better one. Like it's, North Carolina doesn't have an NBA team. They've got the Tar Heels. Like, I feel like that's like the echelon that Victoria serves here in Canada.
Awesome, Joey. Well, before we wrap up here, I know obviously this is a special edition of the show, but I do think it'd be fun to do a quick little hitter with you. So I want to throw you a curveball, if you will. So obviously we got a Winnipeg Bandits matchup coming up later in June. Hard to believe it's already June 1. This season's already flying by. But for Vancouver fans who may want to be figuring out, okay, this Winnipeg team, we haven't played them yet. They're 3-3. Looking ahead, you're giving a scouting report, new head coach in Rainbow. How do teams game plan for Winnipeg? They're big with Jeremiah Tillman. They're dynamic with Teddy Allen, who can set a new career high on any given night. They got some locals, some youth sports players, and they have arguably the best fan base in the league at the same time. So it's hard to get a win there any given night. What does the team have to do when they come into Canada Life?
Honestly, the proof is in the pudding. That, like, so far this year, is rebounding has been their Achilles heel, particularly late in games. So rebounding would be key, and just stopping them in transition. If you can create your own transition opportunities too. They have shown from different games that they can have trouble taking care of the ball. But I think when it comes down to it, is they are going to shoot. They've got shooters. They can shoot from everywhere. So rebounding becomes key, right? And we've seen it this year. Like, there haven't been a ton of rebounds for Winnipeg where it's just it falls into their hands because nobody's there. Like, they've got the memo that you've got to crash the boards on this team. But they're a fast, they're a fun team. They're defense first, grit and grind. They get a lot of transition points because they also force a lot of turnovers. It's a very athletic team, and it is a fun team to watch. They are 3-3. But as I was talking about in our episode, it's a very optimistic 3-3, Andrew. All of those losses were by like 4 points or less. And they were all on the road, and they were all against teams, aside from Saskatoon, that were undefeated when they lost to them, right? So Brampton, Scarborough, even in the road game against Edmonton, that was a 2-point game. It was a really low-scoring game, but they won that game by 2 points on the road. They lost by 2, they lost by 4, and then they lost by 2 again. This is a team that is always in the fight, and they go punch for punch. So, Vancouver does have a lot of tools and some advantages. Like, I think Tyrese Samuel would be huge in that matchup. Jalen House is going to wreak havoc on that defense, and is going to have his hands full on defense as well, because the guard play is very, very deep. We have deep a guard depth is the word I'm looking for in Winnipeg here. So that would be the scouting report, though. If you can slow them down and get those rebounds, you're going to put a lot of pressure on them. But just like Vancouver, there's not really anything glaring in weak spots. They're a pretty complete team.
Can't wait for that one. That's going to be June 18th. But ahead of that, fans got to make the trip up to the Okanagan. Game between the Mamba and Vancouver Bandits. First ever pro basketball game in Kelowna at Prospera Place. Tip-off at 6 p.m. Get there early. Tune in. Joey, we got to do this again sometime. We got to do a live show somehow, some way. But whether it's here or in Winnipeg or Vancouver or wherever, or maybe we're enjoying a nice glass of wine in the Okanagan. So great to do this with you. And for fans who are ticking up on other stuff, make sure you're following along on Target Score Pod on social, watching on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
So here's what I'll say to you. Your challenge, go to these wineries, pitch them on Target Score. We're going to do a special live in Kelowna for some reason after the game has already been played. And maybe we'll start the campaign for Kelowna. Bring basketball to Kelowna. That'll be our motto, and we'll get that going. But always fun, dude. Love chatting basketball with you, and it's been an honor and privilege to do it here in podcast form. You guys have been doing great work out there, and I think you're right. We have to have that live show, and I can't wait for our crossover show. That one's going to be fun.
Thanks, Joey. See you later, man.